Please, don't send us back into the storm." Her voice shook as she stood in the doorway of my mansion, snow melting off her hair and fear in her eyes. I tightened my grip on the doorframe. "I don't let strangers into my home," I said coldly. "Especially not on Christmas Eve." She swallowed hard, pulling her little girl closer. "I understand, sir. But my daughter can barely feel her fingers. If we go back out there, she won't make it far." The child looked up at me then, wide-eyed, trembling, cheeks red from the cold, and whispered, "Please, mister. I'm scared." For a moment, something inside me snapped open. 8 years of loneliness, 8 years of silence, 8 years of avoiding Christmas, crumbled under the weight of that tiny voice. I should have turned them away. I had every reason to. But instead, I heard myself whisper, "Come inside." I didn't know it then, but that moment, that single choice, would change every Christmas for the rest of my life. Before I tell you what happened next, do me one favor. Subscribe to Tales by Amani, like this video, and kindly tell me where you are watching from. This is the Christmas story I never thought I'd share with the world. I stepped back from the door and took a slow breath. What began as a simple "come inside" would not make sense to you unless I start at the beginning, at how my Christmas Eves really are. Every year on Christmas Eve, I walk the same path through my house. It is not a long walk in distance, but it feels heavy. I start at the study with the floor-to-ceiling windows and cross the long hall to the library, past the gallery, down the stairs, through the kitchen, and back again. I tell myself I am checking the lights, the locks, the heating. I know I am really walking through a life I no longer live. My name is Harold Kingsley. I am 68 years old. People say, "Billionaire," when they say my name. They talk about Kingsley Global, about deals I made, about donations with my name on them. They do not talk about the part of my life that matters to me most, because it is not public. It is a house that holds the echo of one small voice I have not heard in 8 years. The study is where I always begin. I stand at the window and look over the city. From up here, the streets look clean and quiet. The snow hides the mess. You can almost believe there is no pain down there. For a while, I used to drink whiskey in this room. It dulled the sharp edge of winter nights. I stopped when I realized it also dulled the few good memories I had left. Now I drink tea. It forces me to feel everything. I pass the piano room and keep my eyes straight. The lid is closed. The bench is pushed in tight. My daughter, Anna, used to sit there with her legs barely reaching the pedals. She would press one key again and again until she liked the sound. That last Christmas she played Silent Night, the way children do, with patience and pride. I stood behind her and turned the pages even though she did not need me to. She looked up and said, "You have to listen with your eyes too, Daddy." I have tried to do that ever since. I tell the staff to go home every December 24th. They think it is generous. It is not. It is fear. I cannot stand cheerful voices in these rooms on that night. I cannot watch people set a table for 10 when I can barely sit at a table for 1. So the house is mine alone. My choice and my sentence. No music. No lights. No wreath on the door. No tree by the window. If I decorate, I open the door to a flood. I have learned that grief can swim. I stop in the library and rest my hand on a leather chair. The air smells like old paper and cedar polish. When Anna was little, she would pull books from the lower shelves and sit on the rug, turning pages she could not read. She said the gold letters looked like stars. That is the last clear Christmas picture I have of her. Small body on a red rug, hair tied in a ribbon, light on her face from the window, proud of a story she made up about a brave snowman who did not melt. The year after the accident, people tried to help. They brought ornaments. They invited me to dinners. They offered to bring music into the house, just for an hour. I did not say yes, and I did not say no. I let their messages pile up. I watched the phone light blink and go dark. After a while, people stopped trying. It was easier for them. It was easier for me too, or that is what I told myself. To live without reminders is to live without life, but I did not have the strength to admit that. I walked through the gallery next. The paintings are from all over the world. I bought them because I could. I stood with experts who spoke about light and shadow and form. They used words like movement and breath. I nodded, wrote a check, and watched a crew hang them on my walls. Most days they are just expensive decoration. On Christmas Eve, they are a row of faces that look back at me and say nothing. Down the back stairs, the kitchen waits like a stage before a show that will never start. There are copper pans, a large oven I rarely use, and a long stone counter that could hold a dozen plates. Tonight there is only a kettle on the stove and a single cup on the counter. The hum of the refrigerator is the only sound. Sometimes I turn it off for a moment to hear what silence really sounds like. It is not empty. It has weight. It sits on your chest. 8 years. People say time heals. It is true in small ways. I do not wake every night now. I do not forget to eat. I can speak my daughter's name without losing my voice. But there is a space inside me that never closes. It is shaped like a child, and the years do not fill it in. On Christmas Eve, the edges of that space light up. They glow like the outline of a door I cannot open. I head back to the study and pick up the photo I keep face down on the desk. It is the last picture of us three together. Anna is in the middle, holding both our hands, leaning forward on the balls of her feet like she is about to run. My wife, Claire, is laughing with her head thrown back. I am looking at them both with the dumb smile of a man who believes his life is a fixed thing. I put the photo back down. I have learned that a picture can be a window and a trap. Sometimes I wonder if I could have changed that day. If I had moved a meeting. If I had driven them myself. If I had asked them to wait until morning. This is the guilt that does not end. The belief that one small act could have turned a car left instead of right. I know it is not true. I also know it is. Both things can live in one body and make a person tired. Outside, the snow keeps falling. The lights along the driveway blink under a layer of white. The iron gate at the end of the lane is shut, a dark line across the drift. The groundskeeper sent a message earlier. Roads are slick, wind is picking up. I told him to stay home. There is no party here. No guests to greet. No caroling at the door. Only me, my steps, and this long loop I walk until I can sleep. I check the security monitors the way I always do. Habit, not worry. Screen 1 shows the front walk and the big stone steps. Screen 2 shows the drive. Screen 3 shows the gate. Snow moves across the images like static. The cameras catch motion and highlight it with a small white box. Usually it is a fox or a branch. Tonight the white box flickers and stays. I lean closer. At the gate, 2 figures fight the wind. One tall, one small. The tall one bends to shield the small one. The small one stumbles and holds on. For a second they disappear in a sweep of snow, and then they come back, pressed close to the intercom post at the side of the gate. The taller figure raises a hand, hesitates, lowers it, then tries again. I do not move. I tell myself this is not my concern. There are other houses on the road. Someone else can help. My hand is already on the desk, already reaching for the control panel that opens the audio channel. I can see the thin coat on the taller one, the way the wind grabs the hem. I can see the small shape shiver. I stand up without meaning to. The chair legs scrape the floor. My tea has gone cold, but I swallow anyway and it tastes like metal. I tell myself I should call security and let them handle it. I tell myself I should mind my borders, keep to my lines. But I am already walking to the door of the study. The house is very quiet. My steps sound loud, like I have not walked this path in years. At the top of the stairs, I stop and look back at the monitors. The taller figure presses the button. A tiny red light comes on at the gate. The small one leans into the taller one's side, trying to hide from the wind. Even from here, even through a camera, I can see the shape of that small body and feel a memory rise, slow and sure, like a tide. I go down the stairs, my hand on the rail. I do not know what I will say. I do not know what I will do. I only know that 2 strangers are at my gate in a storm, and that Christmas Eve has never brought anyone to my door in 8 years. I reach the panel at the front hall and press the key that opens the intercom. "Hello," a woman's voice says, thin and breathless through the speaker. "I'm sorry. We're lost. My little girl is cold." Her words hang there in the empty hall. I look at the dark window beside the door and see my own face, older than it should be. The breeze from the frame is cold on my wrist. Outside, the snow keeps falling. On the screen, mother and child wait, small figures against the gate and the night. I take one more breath. Then I press the button to speak. Her voice came through the speaker again, thin and tired. "Please, my daughter is freezing." For a moment, I stood still in the hallway. My hand hovered above the panel, and it felt like the house itself was waiting to see what I would do. I could hear the wind push against the windows. I could almost feel the cold they were standing in. I should have called the police or security. That would have been the smart choice. That is what a man with good sense and a long list of enemies would do. A billionaire who keeps his gates shut has reasons for it. People expect something from you, or they want something from you. I learned that lesson more than once. But this did not feel like a threat. This felt like interruption. An unexpected tear in the routine I had built to survive Christmas Eve. "Sir, please," the woman said again. "We're just trying to call someone. My phone died. We won't come inside. We just need a moment out of the cold." The small voice beside her spoke next. Soft, shaking, almost swallowed by the storm. "Mama, my fingers hurt." That sound went straight through me. It was not even the words, just the size of it. The sound of a child trying to be brave. It picked at something buried deep inside my chest, something I spent years trying not to touch. For a moment, I saw Anna again. Not as a ghost, not as grief, but as she once was, standing in the doorway with her little hands cupped around a snow globe, telling me it was too cold for real snow. I saw her cheeks red from winter air, her breath fogging the glass, her coat unzipped because she always forgot to close it. When she laughed, her whole body moved. I blinked hard. The memory broke like thin glass. The hallway felt colder, and the present came back into focus. The woman spoke once more, softer now. "I'm sorry to bother you. I didn't know where else to go." Her apology pulled at me in a way I cannot explain. Anyone else would have begged, or demanded, or become angry. But she was careful, respectful, even in fear. As though she believed she had no right to ask for help at all. That humility, it caught me off guard. Still, I hesitated. You build walls for a reason. You learn who to trust. You learn how not to feel. You tell yourself it keeps you safe. But the truth is simpler. Sometimes walls are just fear dressed up as wisdom. My thumb brushed the button that would open the gate. I pulled back. I paced one step to the left, one to the right. I told myself that opening my home to strangers was foolish. I told myself people take advantage. I told myself this is how men like me end up on morning news headlines. Yet when I looked at the monitor, I saw the little girl's head rest against her mother's side. Her coat was too thin for a storm like this. Her legs wobbled. Her breath came in short puffs of white air. I felt guilt rise in me, slow but heavy. Guilt that I was warm, standing in a heated hallway, while a child fought the winter alone at my gate. Guilt that I knew exactly what it meant for a child to be vulnerable. Guilt that I had once sworn I would never ignore a child in need. Fear tugged at me next. Fear of letting anyone inside the quiet life I built. Fear of feeling again. Fear of opening the door to memories I had locked away. But something else pushed back against it. Something small, but steady. Maybe it was the voice of the man I used to be. Or maybe it was the simple truth that no human being should suffer outside my gate on a night like this. My hand moved on its own. The mechanical click of the gate unlocking echoed through the speakers, followed by the slow hum of it sliding open. The woman gasped. The child whispered something I could not make out. I stood straight, waiting, listening to the snow crunch under their feet as they entered the drive. Part of me hoped they would change their minds and walk past the house. Another part of me hoped they would not. Their footsteps grew louder. Their shadows stretched long across the walkway lights. The storm pushed them forward in short waves, the wind tearing at their clothes. My heart beat harder than it should have. It wasn't fear of them. It was fear of myself, fear of what this moment might stir up. A shape moved past the window. Then another. They were close now. Closer. I reached for the front door handle. My hand felt stiff, like it belonged to an older man than I admitted I was. The last thing I saw before I opened the door was the child leaning heavily against her mother's leg, her small shoulders shaking from the cold. The storm roared behind them. The warmth of my house stood behind me. Between us was the moment I had avoided for 8 long years, the moment I let people back in. I pulled the door open. The cold rushed in first. It wrapped around my legs and climbed up my back like a warning. Then the 2 figures stepped into the light of the doorway, and the storm behind them softened into nothing but sound. The woman held her daughter close, almost lifting her off the ground with one arm. Her maid uniform was soaked through, thin fabric clinging to her arms, skirt heavy with melted snow. Her dark hair stuck to her cheeks. Her hands shook, but she tried to hide it by rubbing warmth into her daughter's shoulders. The little girl, she looked even smaller up close. Her coat was too big, sliding off one shoulder, the sleeves covering her hands entirely. Snow dusted her eyelashes. Her face was red, not from cold alone but from the strain of staying brave for too long. When her eyes met mine, I felt something shift inside me, like an old hinge cracking after years of rust. "Please forgive us," the woman said quickly. Her voice was breathless. "I'm so sorry to bother you like this. We'll only take a minute. I didn't know what else to do." Her apology felt rehearsed, like she had spent her whole life saying sorry for things she had no control over. "It's fine," I said. My voice came out stiffer than I meant. "Come inside. Both of you." She hesitated, almost as if stepping over the threshold of a stranger's mansion was a crime. Then she guided the little girl forward. The warmth hit them immediately. I saw the tension drain from the child's face, replaced by exhaustion so deep it almost pulled her to the floor. "Thank you," the woman whispered. "Thank you so much." I shut the door behind them. The storm was cut off in an instant. The silence returned, but it wasn't the usual kind. It wasn't empty. It held 2 breathing bodies now. 2 sets of footsteps. A faint trembling from the little girl's hands. The woman brushed snow off her daughter's coat, then looked up at me again, eyes full of guilt. "I'm Maria," she said. "This is my daughter, Sophia. I'm sorry again. I know we shouldn't be here." "It's all right," I said, though I wasn't sure why it felt important to reassure her. "You're safe now." Sophia looked around the foyer with wide, curious eyes. The high ceiling, the polished floors, the quiet air, it must have felt like another world to her. She took one careful step forward, then another. Then she asked the one question I did not expect. "Where's your Christmas tree?" I felt it like a punch. Not loud, not sharp, just deep. A dull ache in the center of my chest that spread slowly outward. Maria tried to shush her. "Sophia, don't." I raised a hand. "It's all right." But it wasn't. Not really. I swallowed before speaking. "I haven't had one for a while." Sophia tilted her head, confused. "But it's Christmas." "Yes," I said. "It is." She waited for more, the way children do. She assumed every answer should make sense. But mine didn't. I didn't have the strength to explain the kind of grief that steals holidays and seasons and entire years. Maria stepped forward again, trying to shift the attention away from the question. "Sir, we didn't mean to intrude. We were on the bus earlier. It broke down outside the main road. They told us another one wouldn't come for hours because of the storm." She rubbed her hands together. The skin was red and raw. "I tried calling my sister," she continued, "but my phone died. I thought we could walk the rest of the way, but the cold, it caught up to us faster than I expected." She looked down, ashamed. "I should have planned better. I didn't think the storm would get this bad." Her responsibility for every small detail, her instinct to blame herself, made something in my chest tighten again. "You did what you could," I said quietly. "The weather turned quickly. It happens. She nodded but didn't look convinced. Sophia tugged at her mother's sleeve. Mama. My toes hurt. Maria's face twisted with worry. I know, sweetheart. We'll warm them in a minute. Without thinking, I stepped forward. The fireplace in the sitting room is lit. Come with me. Their hesitation came again. Quick, polite, almost fearful. People don't trust kindness from strangers, especially kindness that comes wrapped in wealth. I didn't fault them for it. I led them down the hallway. Their footsteps followed mine, soft and uncertain. When we reached the sitting room, the fire threw a warm glow across the floor. I motioned to the sofa near the hearth. Sit, I said. She needs heat. Maria guided Sophia to the couch, removing her wet coat and boots. Steam rose from the child's socks as they inched closer to the fire. I watched her shoulders loosen as warmth crept back into her small body. Maria let out a long breath. I can't believe we're inside. Thank you again. We would have frozen out there. I nodded, though a strange feeling tugged inside me. It wasn't pride. It wasn't pity. It was something deeper, something uncomfortable, a quiet realization that their presence did not feel wrong. In fact, it felt natural. That surprised me. For years, I avoided people. I shut down conversations. I closed off rooms. I cut myself away from anything that reminded me of what I'd lost. Yet now, with this woman and her daughter sitting near my fire, the house felt different. The silence was no longer heavy. The air no longer felt stale. I stood near the doorway, watching them warm up. Sophia held her hands close to the flames, blowing on her fingers. Maria tucked a strand of wet hair behind her ear and glanced around the room. It's beautiful, she said. I've never seen a house like this. Her voice held no jealousy, only quiet wonder. It doesn't feel as big when it's empty, I replied. She looked at me then, and for a moment she seemed to understand more than I expected. There was no judgment in her eyes, no curiosity about my wealth, only a gentle kind of sympathy. Sympathy from a stranger who saw something lonely in me. I didn't know how to handle that. I looked away, pretending to adjust a log in the fire. The flames rose. The warmth filled the space around us. And something settled in my chest. Not comfort, not peace, but a shift. A small turning. A crack in a wall I had kept sealed for 8 long years. Maria whispered something to Sophia. The girl leaned her head against her mother's arm. They looked tired. They looked relieved. And for the first time in a very long time, I did not feel like the only living soul in my home. Maria and Sophia sat close to the fire, letting their clothes dry in the warmth. I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do next. Hospitality was something I had forgotten how to give. Still, I heard myself say, "Wait here. I'll bring you something warm to wear." I went upstairs to the guest hallway where spare rooms sat untouched. Most of the clothes belonged to staff who had left years ago or to old boxes I never sorted. I found a soft sweater that would fit Maria and a small fleece set from a drawer where I had once kept extra clothes for my daughter. I held the tiny shirt for a long moment. The size was familiar. The feel was familiar. I felt a tightening in my chest, but I didn't put it back. Instead, I carried both sets downstairs. When I returned to the sitting room, Maria stood up quickly, almost embarrassed to be waiting. "You didn't have to do this," she said, accepting the clothes. "I don't want to trouble you more than we already have." "It's no trouble," I said. "You both need to get warm." Sophia reached for the fleece shirt with tired, slow fingers. "It's soft," she whispered. Her voice was small but steady now. Maria changed her behind a large armchair, and when they sat again by the fire, the tension in their faces had eased a little. Sophia curled her legs under her body, leaning fully into the heat, her eyes half closed. "You both must be hungry," I said, surprising myself. "Let me make something." Maria shook her head quickly. "Please, don't bother. We're grateful for the warmth. That's enough." But the stove was already calling to me. I hadn't cooked for anyone in years. Most nights I ordered takeout or ate whatever the chef left in the fridge. Cooking had once been a simple pleasure, Something I did while Anna told me about imaginary adventures she created in her head. "Stay by the fire," I said. "It's no bother." I walked into the kitchen, turned on the lights, and opened cabinets that rarely held anything useful. Luckily, I kept a good stock of basic ingredients. I set water to boil and started a pot of simple soup, nothing fancy, but warm and filling. As I chopped vegetables, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The knife rhythm, the steam rising, the soft hum of the stove, these things used to fill my evenings. Cooking for someone felt different. It felt like purpose. Halfway through stirring the soup, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then everything went dark. The dull hum of the refrigerator stopped. The stove shut off. Silence took over again. "Is everything okay?" Maria called from the sitting room. "Power's out," I replied. "The storm must have hit a line." The emergency lights clicked on, dim, soft, but enough to guide me. I carried the pot of soup, now cooking only by the heat it held, and found a stack of candles in a drawer. As I brought them into the sitting room, Sophia's eyes grew wide. "It's pretty," she said as I lit one candle after another. The glow spread across the room, warm and golden. Shadows softened. The whole mansion felt smaller, almost cozy. Maria looked around quietly. "I can't remember the last time I sat somewhere this peaceful," she said. Not admiration, just a simple truth. We ate soup by candlelight. Sophia blew on each spoonful, careful and slow. Maria ate with quiet gratitude, pausing now and then to warm her hands by the flames. "This is the best thing I've tasted in a long time," Maria said. She meant it. I could hear it in her voice. After dinner, Sophia found her strength again. Children recover fast. She wandered a few steps into the hall, looking left and right, touching everything with gentle curiosity. "Is this your whole house?" she asked. "A small part of it," I said. Her eyes widened. "It's like a museum." I almost laughed at that, and something inside me loosened. She walked toward a shelf with framed photos, most face down, some placed backward to hide them from view. She pointed at one of them. "Why are some of your pictures turned around?" Before I could answer, Maria stepped in gently. "Sophia, don't be rude." But Sophia wasn't being rude. She was being honest. Children often ask the questions adults walk around. "It's all right," I said. "Some things are hard to look at." Sophia accepted that answer as children do. She moved toward the piano room next. The door was half open. She peeked inside. "Did someone used to play in here?" "Yes," I said softly. "Was it you?" "No," I replied. "Someone much smaller." She nodded, as if she understood without needing details. Then she pressed one key, just one. The soft note floated out into the hallway like a breath from the past. It was a sound I had avoided for years, yet hearing it now didn't break me. It reached something inside me, but not with pain. More like a light touch on an old scar. Maria watched her daughter with a tired smile. "She's always curious," she said. "Even when she shouldn't be." "Curiosity keeps the world warm," I replied without thinking. Maria looked at me then, closer, almost studying me. "You're kind," she said. I didn't expect that. I wasn't sure how to respond. I didn't feel kind. I felt like a man who had hidden for too long. She sat on the couch again. The candlelight made her look older and younger at once. Older from exhaustion, younger from relief. She rubbed her arms for warmth. "It's been a rough few years," she said with a sigh. "I work mornings at the laundry, then nights at the hotel. Some days I feel like I'm held together only because Sophia needs me to be." Her voice shook a little. "I try so hard to give her a stable life. But everything costs money I don't have. And I'm always afraid of what one bad day might do." Her honesty disarmed me. I sat across from her, the fire warm against my back. "You've done well," I said. "She's safe. She's loved. That matters." She looked at the floor. "I hope so." The wind hit the house again then, hard enough to rattle the windows. The candles flickered. Maria checked the time on her dead phone out of habit. "The roads won't open tonight," I said. "You both should stay here." She lifted her head fast. "No, we can't impose. It's safer this way," I said. "There are several guest rooms. You can choose whichever one feels comfortable." She hesitated, torn between pride and need. But Sophia rubbed her eyes and leaned against her, half asleep. Maria's shoulders dropped. "Thank you," she whispered. I took them upstairs and opened the door to a warm guest room. Sophia climbed onto the bed without instruction, too tired to pretend she wasn't worn out. "I'll stay with her," Maria said softly. I went to a cedar chest near the wall. Inside were blankets and quilts I had kept untouched for years. I reached for one, white, soft, hand-stitched. Anna's. She used to drag this quilt around the house like a cape. For a moment, I froze. Then I carried it to the bed. Sophia curled under it as if it had been waiting for her. "Good night," she murmured, already fading. I stepped back, watching her breathing slow, her small hand resting on the corner of the quilt like it belonged to her. Maria whispered, "You've given us more than shelter tonight." But the truth was simpler. For the first time in years, the house felt alive. And as I watched that child sleep under my daughter's quilt, something inside me shifted, quietly, gently, like a door opening after a long time. I did not laugh loudly, but a small breath escaped me. It was soft. It was real. And it was the first sign that my heart, frozen for 8 long Christmases, had started to thaw. Morning came slowly. I knew it even before my eyes opened. The house felt different. Warmer. Softer. As if the air had shifted during the night. I lay there for a moment, listening. There was a faint sound coming from the guest hallway. Quiet footsteps, the low murmur of a mother trying not to wake her child. For the first time in years, I did not wake to silence. I went to the window. The storm had eased, but the world outside was still buried in white. The trees along the driveway sagged under the weight of fresh snow. The roads had turned into long, frozen blankets. No car could get through that. No bus. No taxi. Even the main street beyond the gate looked untouched. The reality settled in with a strange calm. They weren't going anywhere today. I headed downstairs. The house felt less empty with each step I took. There was a faint smell of the candles we used last night, mixed with the warmth of the fire that still held a slow, steady glow. When I entered the kitchen, I saw Maria standing near the counter, looking unsure of whether she should sit or remain standing. Sophia sat at the table, swinging her legs gently back and forth, wrapped in the same fleece shirt I had given her. "Good morning," I said. They both turned. Sophia gave a shy smile. Maria looked down as if she wasn't sure she deserved to smile at all. "I hope you slept well," I added. "We did," Maria replied. "Thank you. Truly. I don't know how to repay you for everything you've done." "You don't need to repay me," I said. "Sit. Let's have breakfast." I made eggs and warm toast, simple food, but somehow it felt like preparing a feast. I watched Sophia study the kitchen with big eyes, tapping her fingers on the table as she waited. There was something steadying about her presence, like the house finally had a heartbeat again. As we ate, I found myself watching them more than I ate myself. I kept thinking about the way Sophia had curled under Anna's quilt last night, peaceful and safe. That sight had stirred something deep in me. Not pain this time, just a soft ache, almost gentle. It had been years since I felt anything like that. Maria noticed my quiet stare and set her fork down. "Is everything all right?" "Yes," I said. "I'm just thinking." She nodded, waiting, not pushing. I appreciated that. I looked at her hands, tired hands, knuckles cracked from cleaning and long shifts. Hands that held her daughter through a storm. Hands that deserved better than constant struggle. Then I looked at Sophia. Her energy was already returning. She hummed under her breath, tapping the table with her fingertips, gazing around as if she was piecing together a story in her mind. Children do that. They make worlds out of whatever you give them. That was the moment I knew what I wanted to say. "Maria," I began, "I want to help you." She blinked, unsure. Help me how? I want to offer you something stable, I said. Something long-term. Her eyes widened a little, but she didn't speak. You can work here, I continued. As a live-in housekeeper. Regular hours. Good pay. You wouldn't have to run from job to job or worry about the bus breaking down in the cold. Her breath caught. Sophia paused mid-tap and looked at her mother. And Sophia, I added, I'll cover her schooling. Everything she needs. Books, clothes, fees. All of it. Maria pressed a hand to her chest. Sir, There's more, I said gently. You told me last night you want to become a certified caregiver. I can help with that too. I'll pay for your classes, your exams, the entire program. You shouldn't have to choose between working and building a better future. She shook her head slowly, overwhelmed. Her eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. I don't know what to say. I don't know why you do this for us. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the truth rise out of me before I even shaped it into words. Because last night, you reminded me of something I lost. Something I didn't think I'd ever feel again. You and Sophia brought life back into this house. And into me. Maria covered her mouth, tears slipping free. She looked down, shoulders trembling. Sophia slid off her chair and walked over to me. She didn't ask permission. She didn't think twice. She wrapped her small arms around my waist. I froze. Then something warm broke open inside me. It wasn't the sharp, tearing pain I used to feel when I remembered Anna. This was different. Softer. Healing. I placed my hand gently on top of her head. She looked up at me and smiled, the kind of smile children give when they trust without hesitation. Maria wiped her face. We don't deserve this, she whispered. You deserve peace, I said. And a chance. That's all. The snow outside tapped lightly against the window. The wind had softened into a quiet hush, like the storm itself was settling down. Maria finally spoke again, voice unsteady. If you're sure, we'll stay here until the road's clear. I can't think straight right now, but thank you. Truly. Sophia climbed back into her chair, swinging her legs again, brighter now than she had been when she first stepped inside my home. Something in the air felt different. The silence wasn't heavy. The rooms didn't feel as large. The house wasn't an empty shell anymore. It felt alive. Alive in a way I thought I would never feel again. And as I watched the two of them eat breakfast in my kitchen, the same kitchen that had sat cold and unused for years, I understood something simple and honest. Christmas had finally come back into my home. Not through decorations. Not through music. But through two strangers who knocked on my gate in a storm. By late afternoon, the roads began to open in narrow, careful paths. Plows groaned in the distance. The wind eased. The sky turned from hard gray to a softer shade, like the weather had taken a long breath and let it out. I stood at the window and watched a small car edge its way up the street, lights blinking through the frost. It stopped near the gate. A woman climbed out, bundled tight, moving fast despite the cold. Maria's phone buzzed to life as the power steadied. She checked it, then looked at me with relief. My sister is here, she said. We walked to the front hall together. Sophia buttoned her fleece up to her neck and slid her feet into the boots we had set near the radiator to dry. Maria tucked her hair under a hat and wrapped her scarf twice around her throat. The moment felt heavier than I expected. They were not mine to keep. I knew that. But the house had warmed to their presence the way skin warms to sun after a long winter. Letting them go felt like stepping back into shade. At the door we paused. The three of us stood in a neat line, like a family ready for a photo. No cameras. Just the sense that something worth remembering had happened here. Thank you, Maria said, her voice steady but full. For the room. For the food. For the offer. I will not waste any of it. I told her there was no debt to carry. The help came from a place I had not visited in years, and I was grateful to find it still existed. Sophia squeezed my hand with her smaller one. No words, just that firm, warm hold. She looked up and smiled the same shy smile she had at breakfast, and it landed gently in my chest. We walked them to the gate. Maria's sister jumped out of the car, eyes bright with worry and then with relief. She hugged Maria first, long and shaking. Then she hugged Sophia and kissed her forehead in quick, grateful bursts. When she turned to me, she thanked me in a dozen quiet ways. Her voice, her eyes, the way she reached for my hand with both of hers. I told her the roads were still tricky and to drive slowly. She promised she would. The goodbyes were simple. They always are when the ties are real. Sophia waved from the back seat. She pressed her palm to the window. I pressed mine to the cold gate in answer. The car rolled away, its tires making a careful line through the soft snow. The taillights grew smaller and then disappeared at the bend. I stood there a while longer. The air bit at my face, but I did not rush back inside. The silence after they left was not the same silence I knew. It did not echo. It did not accuse. It settled, like a blanket you can live under. Back inside, I walked the old path, study, hallway, library, stairs, kitchen, but the loop felt different under my feet. The rooms were the same. The portrait glass reflected the same man. Yet something in the scale of the house had shifted. The ceilings felt lower. The walls felt closer. It no longer felt like a museum to a life I lost. It felt like a place where a life might start again. I went to the storage room and pulled down a box I had not touched in 8 years. Dust lifted in a soft cloud when I opened it. Lights, neatly wrapped once, sat tangled now. A small glass ornament rolled against my palm. It was a clear sphere with a silver thread and a tiny printed word, joy. I had forgotten it. My hand shook, but not from fear. I set the ornament on the counter, found the extension cord, and plugged in a strand of lights. Half of them blinked to life. I smiled because the imperfection felt honest. I drove to a small market at the edge of the neighborhood. The owner knew me by name and by silence. He did not ask questions. He pointed to a corner where small trees stood wrapped in netting, the last of the lot. I chose one that fit the music room, simple and steady, not tall enough to impress anyone, but tall enough to be seen from the street through the window, where a child might look up and think, someone lives there. Back home, I set the tree in the old stand and turned on the fire. I did not decorate quickly. I placed each thing with care. The star went on last. I did not climb a ladder. I lifted it from the stool, and it slid into place with the lightest click. When I stepped back, there was nothing grand in the picture before me, just a warm room and a lit tree and a man breathing easier than he had in years. In the days that followed, I called old contacts I had ignored. I asked for volunteer schedules at the children's clinic my foundation had funded and barely visited. The coordinator sounded surprised to hear my voice. She did not hide it well. I told her I could read to children, push carts, restock blankets, hold a hand if a parent needed coffee. She said they would find a place for me. They did. I learned how to tie a gown quickly and how to listen without turning every story into a plan. Maria texted a week later with a picture of his and hers notebooks she and Sophia had bought with a gift card I had sent for supplies. For school and for life, she wrote. We'll use both. She added a line about her enrollment. The caregiver program accepted her for the next session. I returned to the storage room and found 2 boxes I had kept from the days when I still believed in future projects. Clean binders, good pens, packs of index cards. I wrote a simple note, proud of you, and mailed the box without ceremony. Sophia mailed drawings. The first arrived in a large envelope with careful block letters. 3 figures stood in front of a house with yellow windows and a triangle tree in the corner. The figures were labeled Mama, Me, and You. Her little hand had drawn mine bigger than the others, and the fingers were too long, but the smile was right. I pinned the picture to the side of the refrigerator with a magnet in the shape of a red apple. The kitchen looked better with that small burst of color. The months turned, as months do. Snow softened into rain. The city found its shape again under the gray. I kept my mornings for the hospital and my afternoons for work that felt less like an armor and more like a tool. The staff noticed I was in the office less and in the world more. I told them we would be fine. We were. Maria's updates came steady. She passed her first exam. She completed her first practical rotation. She learned how to lift safely, how to chart clearly, how to talk to families who were afraid without adding to their fear. She sounded taller in every message, as if her words had learned how to stand on their own feet. When spring opened properly, they returned. Not as cold, not as tired, not as strangers. I heard the car door before the bell. Sophia ran down the path, stopped just short of the step, and looked up with that same shy smile. She carried a new drawing. This one showed the three of us again, but now the tree had ornaments, and the windows of the house were blue, like sky. Maria walked more slowly, a small folder under her arm and a steadiness in her face I had not seen in winter. I stepped aside and let them in without a word. They did not ask if it was all right. They knew it was. We sat in the sitting room where the fire wasn't needed anymore. The piano lid was still closed, but the room did not feel like it was holding its breath. We spoke about schedules and hours and school forms. We spoke about classes and rotations and how to build the week so that work and study and rest could hold hands instead of fighting. It felt simple. It felt good. Sophia asked if we could turn on the tree lights, even though the tree had long gone. I said we could light something better. We went to the kitchen and strung a short line of lights along the frame of the window. It looked small and cheerful there, like a smile you don't have to explain. That night, after they left again to settle a few last things before moving in, I took the ornament labeled Joy from the shelf and hung it on a hook by the door. It swung once and then held still. I touched it with the back of my knuckle, the way you touch something new and fragile. I think often about that night in the storm. About the knock I almost ignored. About the gate I almost kept shut. I had built a life around walls and called it protection. But a maid and her little girl asked for warmth, and I opened a door. The storm did not break me. It brought me back. It stripped the world to what mattered. A house that could hold people, hands that could make soup, a quilt that could cover a child, an offer that could change a future. Money did not buy that morning. It never could. What did it was smaller and harder and better. It was the choice to say yes when it would have been easier to say no. It was a child's palm against cold glass and a woman's careful voice asking for help. It was the sound of footsteps where there had been none, and the light of a small tree through a window on a street where someone might look up and think, someone lives there. All of it began with a knock I did not expect, on a night I thought I knew too well. And now, when I walk my old loop, study, hall, library, stairs, kitchen, I do not count the echoes. I count the living things, a drawing on the fridge, a note about classes, a pair of small shoes by the door, a laugh that rises without apology. The house holds them the way a hand holds a candle. This is the kind of Christmas morning money can't buy. It is the one you make when your heart learns how to open again. If you felt the warmth in this story, help keep it going. Like, subscribe to Tales by Amani, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us tell more stories that heal, inspire, and bring people together.